Oh dear, it really has been a rough couple of weeks for Snow White, as if the crushingly bad reviews and disastrous opening weekend, where it failed to even match box office predictions that had been repeatedly adjusted down to try to lowball the movie, wasn't bad enough. Then the almost 70% drop off for its second weekend was compounded by the fact that it got beaten by a low budget, generic action movie that would have gone direct to DVD a decade ago from an almost 60-year-old star sleepwalking his way through the kind of role he's played a million times before. And if all that wasn't bad enough, the film's star, Rachel Zegler, was absolutely lambasted on social media by the son of the film's producer, who wrote, "My dad, the producer of enormous piece of Disney IP with hundreds of millions of dollars on the line, had to leave his family to fly across the country to reprimand his 20-year-old employee for dragging her personal politics into the middle of promoting the movie, for which she signed a multi-million-dollar contract to get paid and do publicity for." And so, here we find ourselves, 2 weeks after release, and as of the time of recording this video, Snow White has managed to limp to a worldwide box office gross of $145 million. I think it's safe to say this is probably not what Disney were hoping for. In fact, it's fallen a bit short of the break-even point to say the least. How short exactly? Well, lucky for us, the movie was shot over here in the UK to take advantage of a $50 million tax break.
I can't divulge information about that customer's secret illegal account.
That's great, but one of the funny little quirks of our tax system is that companies like Disney actually have to file tax returns for the movie, which means they're gonna have to publicly divulge their spending for it. Jesus, I think this might be the one and only time in my entire adult life that I've been grateful to the British tax man. Anyway, according to this recent article from Forbes, by July 31st, 2022, Disney had already spent a staggering $183.3 million on making Snow White, even though principal photography had only just wrapped. The latest set of filings show that by December 31st, 2023, that total had risen to $269.4 million, forcing Disney to admit in its filings that the film was forecasted to be over the production budget.
No shit.
Reshoots and post-production work have taken place since then, so the costs are set to increase, though the bulk of the money's been spent. It brings the total cost to around $300 million, which is almost precisely in line with the estimate from expert film industry pundit Valiant Renegade, who assessed back in September 2023 that Disney's Snow White remake cost $300 million.
Fuck.
And that's not even factoring in the cost of promotion, which was at least another $100 million, bringing the total to at least $400 million. But, as I said earlier, it was filmed over here to take advantage of that all-important tax break, so let's deduct $50 million to leave us with a budget of $350 million. But then, of course, distributors have to take their cut, because funnily enough, cinemas don't tend to show movies out of the goodness of their heart. They want a percentage, and according to the film industry expert Stephen Follows, who interviewed over 1,200 film professionals back in 2014, theatres keep 49% of the takings on average. So that means only half of the box office takings actually get paid back to the studio, which in this case means that Snow White would need to make about $700 million just to break even.
Are you serious?
You know, call me crazy, but something tells me they're not gonna make it. In fact, if they even get to $200 million at this point, I'll be impressed. But Drinker, you not-so-charming prince, I hear you say, the movie's only been out for 2 weeks. How can you write it off already? There's still plenty of time to turn it around. Well, dear viewer, movies that actually get stronger week on week are a bit like Glasgow mothers who drop their kids off at school wearing something other than Ugg boots and pyjama bottoms. Yeah, they theoretically do exist, but I've never fucking seen one. The reality is, almost every movie ever makes the bulk of its revenue within the first 2 weeks. After that, pretty much everyone who wants to see it will have done so already, and it's a steep decline into obscurity. Not just that, but there's an even bigger problem looming on the horizon. The Minecraft movie comes out this weekend, a huge IP with a dedicated fanbase that's way more culturally relevant than Snow White, which will target much the same audience and almost certainly wipe it off the face of the earth. This, as they say, is it. Snow White has got nowhere left to go, no major territories left to open in, and no time left to do it. It's officially become one of the biggest bombs in Disney history. Jesus man, it almost makes the Marvels look like a success story.
Is that like a personal attack or something?
And this is unquestionably a good thing, because this is about more than just one crappy movie that people love to shit on. The disastrous failure of this film represents a wholesale rejection, so loud and so clear that even the most out-of-touch Hollywood executive can't possibly ignore it. A rejection of everything this project represents and everything that Hollywood's tried so hard to push in recent years. The lazy retelling of classic stories with cringy modern-day feminist overtones tacked on. The sacrifice of universal themes and characters in favour of divisive identity politics. The obnoxious, opinionated actors who think they're more important than the film they're part of and lash out at anyone who tries to burst their bubble. And the constant recycling of old ideas, retreading paths that were forged by far more talented creatives. For lack of a better description, the message is dead, and Snow White was the funeral dirge. So if that's the case, then where exactly do we go from here? Well, as Echo Chamberlain so rightly observed, now that the cultural tides have shifted and we're leaving behind the era of woke, we're in danger now of sliding into the era of slop, where the same lazy storytelling, recycled ideas and simplistic characters are still being sharted out, only minus the divisive political messaging. And I've even noticed this myself. You'd be amazed how many times I've criticised a certain movie only to find comments on my video like, well, at least it wasn't woke. What are you complaining about, drinker, you dick? Well, I'm sorry, but just because a film doesn't shove identity politics down your throat doesn't mean it gets a free pass from me, and it shouldn't from you either. If your bar for an acceptable movie experience is that fucking low, then you're never gonna get anything better because you're giving the studios no incentive to even try. You're just gonna get more bloated, overpriced slop like The Electric State, or Brave New World, or probably Avengers Doomsday. Hollywood and cinema in general seems to have reached a fork in the road at this point, with one path leading to even bigger and more expensive but creatively bankrupt movies trying desperately to drum up interest through spectacle and cheap nostalgia, and the other leading to smaller, leaner and more creatively interesting new ideas made by people who actually give a shit about telling good stories. And which way they go is going to depend a great deal on what their audience spends their money on. So spend wisely, keep your wits about you and don't let your guard down, dear viewer. We might have won this particular battle, but the war for entertainment isn't over yet. Oh yeah, and just before I fuck off to drink myself into oblivion for another couple of days, I just wanted to remind everyone that the Kickstarter launched by Mauler and myself to make a series of short films is closing in fast on our funding goal. We've now raised over $200,000 in the first few days, which is a fantastic result, and I'm hoping that with your help, we can give it one last push to get it over the finish line. We're really excited to start making movies of our own, even if it's only on a small scale at first, and this is your chance to help make that happen. Either way, I'll put a link to the Kickstarter page in the description where you can find out everything you need to know about the project, the various short films we want to make, and how to submit your own pitch for the chance to get your own short film made. The rest I leave up to you. Anyway, that's all I've got for today. Go away now.